this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my electrician I found on Angie.com to bury my pet hamster Nibbles in our yard for me? Because I was so moved by how carefully he buried my electrical wires, I knew I could trust him to bury my sweet Nibbles after his untimely end. Nibbles, gone too soon. May he scurry in peace.
Hey, sorry about your pet, but I just wire stuff.
Nibbles would have loved you like a brother.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
I do think that this is breaking through because I think she resonates as just a person who is trying to extract herself from a situation she didn't want to be in and maybe even wasn't really of her own making.
I am Jeremy Hobson. Happy 2026 and welcome to the very first episode of a brand new show we're calling The Follow-Up, which is available exclusively on the Middle podcast feed. We are going to be doing this show in between Middle episodes, and I'm going to tell you 3 things about it right now. First of all, you're going to hear us talk to some of the smartest people we know about some of the biggest news of the week. You're going to hear from ordinary Americans. We're going to bring in some of the many, many, many voicemails that we get from you into this show because we are the only national show on public radio that takes live calls. We get a lot of calls. We're going to use more of those here. And we are going to have a little more fun, be a little more relaxed and conversational maybe than we did on One Thing Trump Did because it is now 2026. We have grown up and we give fewer fucks, which Mike Pesca, our first guest, host of the Gist podcast, may be shocked to hear me say, but we're not on broadcast radio right now, Mike.
What?
This is the podcast. Why do a podcast if you can't do that?
It's not that, Jeremy. It's that I had no idea someone had taught you that word. I mean, people would always say, well, Jeremy, he's way too proper to use the F word. And then friends of yours would say, I don't think he knows it. We've kept it from him, to protect the guy from FCC fines.
Right.
So I'm shocked. The jaw's on the floor.
Well, yeah, just to tell our listeners, you and I have known each other for more than 20 years because we used to work on the show Day to Day at NPR, which was the midday show back in 2005 is when I was there. And you were there.
When we both had long flowing manes of hair.
Right.
You much more than me.
Those were the days. You didn't go to Turkey back then to fix that problem.
That's right. Just to get your legs lengthened.
Right. All right. So we're going to talk about 3 things in the news, and we're going to get a prediction from you at the end. And the first thing I want to talk about is something that we've all been thinking about, what happened in Minneapolis, the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE officer. And I have to say, just personally, I don't usually let myself get too affected by the terrible things that happen in the news, the mass shootings and stuff like that, just because it would be terrible. It would just be awful to always, especially when you spend as much time as you and I do focused on the news, to get pulled in so much. But this one really did hit me. It was just awful to watch that video over and over again, see this woman who was a mother, who had a dog in the back of the car, get shot by an ICE officer.
Yeah. It's the juxtaposition of the prosaic and the horrific. And I'm right there with you. I'm less emotionally affected maybe than I should be by so many of these news items. But that was horrible. Now, my mind also went to, okay, horrible, but is it illegal? What will be the adjudication? And I think it might fall into a category called awful but lawful. It was certainly awful, but we're going to learn a lot about the rules of policing and what happens when an officer reasonably, and sometimes the word reasonably isn't even written into the law, feels that there is a vehicle coming at them. Now, we also saw that the Trump administration quickly jumped out and tried to brand it just as that. And in fact, they went way overboard, calling poor Ms. Good a rioter and a domestic terrorist,
right?
Describing scenes that we all saw, because this is video that is rivaling the George Floyd video in its ubiquity, scenes of a confrontation with ICE officers into rioting. And I think the Trump administration thinks that it's playing the PR game right, but I don't think that they do. I don't think that they are. And I'm not saying from a moral or ethical standpoint. I'm saying from their own self-interest. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, pardon the if it's a pun or a reference.
Well, and the thing I think that was kind of shocking about that was that they came out right away, called her a domestic terrorist, when we were all watching a video that didn't seem to show that at all. And actually now even more angles have come out that where she waves the ICE officers on and says, go ahead, I'm pulling out, and she's about to leave and then gets shot. And the Trump administration is saying something that we can see with our own eyes is not what occurred there. And it was happening at the same time as January 6th, the anniversary of January 6th, when there was a member of Congress who came out and said this was just a tourist event that, people just came into the Capitol to check it out, which is like anybody that was watching on that day knows that that's not what happened.
But maybe the January 6th example is one reason why the administration or some members, I saw Tom Homan in an interview saying it would be improper for me to comment. And then the interviewer, Tony DeCoble, said, well, isn't that exactly what DHS has done? And Homan said, well, that's them, I'm me. But maybe this is why January 6th, why the Trump administration thinks that it's a smart play to define black as white. Because as you said, they did that with January 6th. And I thought on January 7th or 30th or within a year that this was really going to redound to their detriment. But defining as up as down and black as white on January 6th helped them. It at least put them in good stead with their constituency. It's a rousing example that they would say, well, we'll do this again. We'll describe it as something other than it wasn't. And so maybe that's why they're doing what they're doing, calling this rioting and domestic terrorism. Or maybe it'll be like the George Floyd incident, which, as you recalled, began with an inaccurate description of a person having a medical incident, a person in medical distress. And there was a lot of horrors with George Floyd. But if you go back to that initial description, it really put the state officials in a bad light.
But when you look at what happened in Minneapolis, do you see it playing out in a different way? Because it's not the first incident of ICE going in a way that many Americans view as too far on immigration enforcement. Even if they voted for Trump, they may believe that it's too far.
Yeah, and the polls show that people voted for his immigration policies. He was more popular on that. And, he will tell you, and it is true, almost zero border crossings. And he did deliver on the numbers, but the public has soured on the methods. Maybe they never considered maybe they just voted for some sort of wish casting version of immigration. But yeah, I do think that this is breaking through because even with other incidents like the CCOT prisoners or specifically Kilmar Abrego Garcia, there is some amount of argument or gray area or, he is being charged with a crime. So it's not pure innocence. And to think of this woman, Renee Nicole Good, as a criminal is a huge stretch. As I said, it might be the case that this officer is not going to get found guilty of anything. But I think she resonates as just a person who is trying to extract herself from a situation she didn't want to be in and maybe even wasn't really of her own making.
Well, and even before this happened, we did a show asking people how they felt about ICE's tactics and whether they thought that they went too far. This is listener Janine from Minneapolis.
I'm an independent voter, not really a Democrat, not really a Republican. Voted for both parties in my lifetime. But what I'm seeing right now makes me not even recognize America. I just think it's horrifying. It's like we have lost our humanity. We're just turning into this cruel country. And the thing that really bothers me is, when Trump was running, it was about getting the illegal people out. Okay, nobody's against making sure that people come to the country legally, but it's been lost. Now it's rounding up people. Now we have minimum numbers of people that need to get rounded up. They're sent to countries that they have no reason to be sent to terrible facilities in those countries. And it's just horrifying to me. I don't recognize America. It makes me very sad, and I don't know what has happened to us. I don't know where our humanity and our empathy has gone.
Mike, it reminds me just of some of the people that I saw in the aftermath of the Good shooting in Minneapolis, people that said, I voted for Trump and this is too far.
Yeah. I think that a characteristic of how Trump does things is always too far. So there's a legitimate issue, immigration. The Biden administration didn't handle it well, didn't handle it at all. I recommend you to a great New York Times coverage of that. So we want a correction, and the correction always by design goes too far and appalls people. Perhaps college campuses, and they got too woke or they got too social justice oriented. And then the correction, trying to strip colleges that do funding into Alzheimer's disease for hundreds of millions of dollars, goes too far. Doge, sure, there's government waste. We should do something about it. And then people with AIDS in Africa are going to die, maybe hundreds of thousands of them, because they attacked USAID. The Trump administration goes too far. This is a feature of the Trump administration. I think it's what they want to do. I sometimes just wonder, is it possible to even solve our problems with a scalpel? Everything is solved with a butcher's knife or with a chainsaw. I mean, Elon Musk actually wielding the chainsaw from a stage to illustrate what he was doing with Doge. But this is the story of the Trump administration, correctly identifying issues that the public agrees with and then going too far in the correction, if it even is a correction.
All right, so let's get to the next story we want to talk about, which is also an area where the Trump administration is making some people happy and some people think that it's going too far and is going to cause all kinds of other problems. And that is capturing the Venezuelan leader, Nicholas Maduro, in Caracas, and his wife, Celia Flores. They're now in U.S. custody on drug trafficking. There's been a pretty strongly negative reaction to this from other world leaders, from some lawmakers about the legality of this, but Venezuelans and Venezuelan Americans seem pretty happy. What do you think is the most significant part of this entire development with regards to what the U.S. just did in Venezuela?
That there is no plan for a year or two from now, that there was no, as far as I can tell, consideration of not the second, but maybe third order effects. So I understand what the administration would articulate. And by the way, when we say the administration, I think J.D. Vance is on a totally different page than Marco Rubio, and Trump has his own motivations. So that's really interesting. But this much I understand, and I'm not even going to tell you if I agree or don't agree, but if we were to ask them, articulate your theory of the case, how it's going to play out, they would say, we got this dangerous man off the chessboard. We're replacing him with perhaps not or definitely not the greatest avatar of democracy in Delcy Rodriguez, his then vice president, now the leader, but we're going to make her / force her to share the oil wealth, and this will benefit America, and she'll be in place and we'll be running the country. All right. That gets us somewhere if that is how it all works out. And then what? And then what happens when the people of Venezuela, the people who left Venezuela, the people who were cheering from the streets of Venezuela are saying, well, we really want a democracy. We don't want a dictator whose only qualifications is she's still running the prisons. She's still running the Secret Service, but she's cutting the American administration in on their oil deals. So it's going to come to a head, and I haven't heard any concept of what happens then.
Well, and the thing about Marco Rubio that's interesting as a player here, and I'm sure he was a very central player in the decision here, is he grew up in Miami. He's a Cuban American. That's a very specific part of our U.S. politics in South Florida. There are people in the administration like Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, Pam Bondi, the attorney general. Obviously, Donald Trump now lives in Florida part-time. The South Florida politics is a different world, and they care more about this than probably anybody else in the United States. And they're hearing from Venezuelans, Cuban Americans who are very happy about this. Listen to this listener, William, who was one of the people who called into our show from Vermont, far away from South Florida, but he's very happy about what just happened.
I'm really grateful that President Trump just trounced right into Venezuela and captured their illegitimate president, because Venezuelans are crying out for freedom and liberty and freedom from tyranny. And Nicholas Maduro only represents the worst of what Latin America has to offer. It is good we've sent missiles to those ships carrying fentanyl into our country. I am grateful for this. And true Venezuelans who are scared and have had to come to our country terrified, I've traveled through more than 40 countries. These people are fucking scared of their dictator, who is no longer their dictator. They're grateful. It is a good day for America, and today is a great day for Venezuela.
So there's another person who's very happy that Trump did this, but I wonder, Mike, what you think about the actual rationale for why Trump decided to go forward with this. Was it about removing a dictator, even though his vice president is in charge and is still part of the regime? Was it about oil? Was it about drugs? Or was it just about having a leader in Venezuela who will do what Donald Trump wants?
It wasn't purely pretextual. The capture of him on drug charges was legitimate. Then they did a superseding indictment for his wife. But he was channeling drugs, almost entirely cocaine, and not manufacturing it there, but Venezuela's a go-between point. Drugs were coming to the United States from Venezuela. He was benefiting. There is precedent for that. One of the precedents is the former president of Honduras, who was pardoned. So that is all true, right? And the international considerations of Venezuela as a pariah state was partnering with the Iranians and the Russians. That's also true. This can all be true, but you have to ask, and then what? And to the listener, who, by the way, knew that cursing was allowed, how
obviously, right?
I more than sympathize with him. And I would be, if I was a Venezuelan or a Cuban when Castro goes, I would be more cheering than remorseful that day or the next day. But he said something like, we are replacing a dictator with freedom. That is not what we are doing. The United States is replacing a dictator with his dictatorial successor. And we're not articulating a theory of freedom. That's hard. That could lead to American deaths and boots on the ground, which apparently no one ever wants. We're replacing one dictator with his almost equivalent replacement, who perhaps we hope will work with us. And so oil was mentioned, I think, 20 times in Trump's speech. And you could say, well, that's realistic. That's what all these other endeavors were about. It wasn't really about democracy. You could say maybe Trump is just being honest with you and leveling with you in a way that neocons wouldn't. But I don't see democracy as being really any part of the articulated agenda.
And one of the places that has come up in the wake of what happened in Venezuela is Greenland, which the Trump administration now says that they want to take from Denmark. Do you take that seriously?
A little bit. Look, on my show, on The Gist, I did the math and I said, why are you threatening? Why are you threatening the NATO alliance and saber rattling? Just pay them. Remember Michael Clayton? I'm not the guy you kill. I'm the guy you pay. There are only 40,000 adult Greenlanders. It's like 57,000 total population. And 40,000 times $1 million each, right? That's $40 billion. That's doable. You don't even have to pay all of them $1 million. And this was actually floated today, that the administration was considering just paying the people to vote for America.
And somebody tweeted in response to that, can't we just pay for healthcare for Americans instead of paying?
It would cost a lot more than 40 billion.
True.
And
that is true.
Do sick Americans have rare earths under them? There's another. We don't want Greenland for the reindeer. We want it for the rare earths.
All right. Well, in a moment, we're going to be talking about the last story here, which is the new mayor in your city, Mike, Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist mayor of New York, and what his vision could mean for America's largest city and for the country as a whole. The follow-up with journalist Mike Pesca. We'll be right back.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
How do you make chicken nuggets like 7,000% better? Short answer, you let Taco Bell make them. Long answer, start with all white meat chicken nuggets, bread them in crunchy tortilla chips, and serve them with Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. Yep, that's Hidden Valley Ranch mixed with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. It's exactly what it sounds like, and somehow even better. Simple math, spicy results. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell. A brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Welcome back to the follow-up. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'm joined by journalist Mike Pesca, who hosts the Gist podcast. And Mike, it is a new year. You're in New York. You have a new mayor. They take office like right at midnight on the 1st of January in New York City. What's the vibe there right now? How are people feeling about Zohran Mamdani?
City of 8 million, different people, different vibes. Some people vibed with him totally. Some people didn't vibe with him. Some didn't like Andrew Cuomo. So to the good, he has shown some signs of moderating. If you read Matthew Iglesias, who is a very good blogger, who is mostly a moderate, he likes what Mamdani is doing so far. He'll take the good and worry about the rhetoric later. On my show, I was talking about someone that he appointed to run the tenants' rights function of the government. Her name is Sia Weaver, and old statements have surfaced where she called for the end of private property ownership, and she said that owning houses was a vestige of white supremacy. She's a socialist. She really is a committed socialist and doesn't think and wants to use the government, all of her powers, in a socialist way. I know you had 100 comments on what socialism means to you, but what it means to her as a socialist is no private ownership of property. So that's troubling. But
which is more of an extreme view probably in the U.S. of socialism at this point.
I think probably, definitely that's not how Bernie Sanders has ever defined it, but this is the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and she more than get along. She's a very celebrated person within their midst. But I would say the big thing that Mamdani is doing and has to do is deliver a huge win. So Bill de Blasio gave us as a city free preschool for 4-year-olds. It's not free, it's taxpayer subsidized. But this got him through so many headaches in the long run. And what Mamdani wants to do is give free, we call it free, taxpayer subsidized childcare. And it's doable. It will
down
be a
to
huge
like
lift.
age 2, I think, right?
Yes. It will be a huge lift. You have to tax corporations and tax millionaires, and millionaires are already highly taxed. You might not, I know, world's smallest violin for the taxed millionaires, but there are calculations to be made, and at a certain point, with state taxes of 10% and city taxes of already of almost 4%. If you make those city taxes of 5%, you incentivize someone to just move to New Jersey or move to Westchester and save a lot of money. But it can be done. I don't know if it will be done. And if Mamdani keeps his eye on the ball and delivers an actual service that actually helps the life of millions, I'll say he has done a good thing.
I'm going to tell you just as an aside, when I moved to New York at first, I eventually got a rent-controlled illegal sublet apartment on the Upper East Side from a friend. But I had to wait a couple of months to get it. And I had a 2-month period where I had to wait to get it. And I was like, I'm going to live somewhere in the next 2 months that I will never choose to live again. And I either was going to live in Staten Island or Jersey City. And I ended up picking Jersey City, and I moved to Jersey City. And actually, I loved Jersey City. It was 9 minutes on the PATH train to the World Trade Center. Easy peasy, like Brooklyn, but cheaper. And I had a nice time in Jersey City. But the reason I bring that up is I specifically that year filed for 2 months of taxes from New Jersey so that I wouldn't have to pay the New York City taxes, which were really high. I mean, it's like, it just adds up.
You.
Yeah.
Even a public radio guy knows.
I probably saved $20. Anyway.
Also, I mean, the 9 minutes on the PATH versus a half hour, beautiful ride. But after 2 months of going back and forth on the ferry, I think when you laid out, I didn't know what your answer was, but when you laid out the choices, I said to myself, Jeremy's definitely moving to Jersey City.
I mean, the ferry would have been fun to go to Staten Island, but anyway, we'll see. Let's listen to one of our callers because we talked about what socialism means. And here is Bill from Florida sharing his thoughts about socialism.
Socialism is an economic system that has a branding problem. The name has been hijacked and then applied. The worst characteristics of dysfunctional governments and societies has been held up as that's what socialism is and that's what it does. An effective community is going to pull from both socialist and capitalist disciplines. That's what we see in the Scandinavian countries. That's what we see, frankly, in all of Europe. And we see much of it in this country with programs like Social Security, like public schools, like public parks, like public highways. What's necessary, in addition to the right balance of socialism and capitalism, is effective governance. You have to have a high-performing government. If you have a poorly performing government, it doesn't matter whether you're socialist or capitalist. And we're seeing that here in this country, and we've seen it around the world.
All right. So, Mike, how important for the branding of democratic socialism is it going to be for Mamdani to succeed in New York City in what he wants?
Meaning, will his success help the brand?
Are people going to make their judgments on somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or whoever going forward based on whether Mamdani can succeed or fail?
Well, it's clear, don't ask me, as them, AOC, Bernie Sanders are always committed to defining socialism in a very palatable way. And the caller said something like socialism as a branding problem because I think he said it can work with capitalism to deliver government. The important thing is that government delivers. I definitely agree with that. But, what socialism really means is democratic control of the means of production. Now, that doesn't mean that countries that call themselves socialists or democratic socialists always have to go in for that. But that is the definition of the political philosophy. If you want to tweak the definition or rebrand the definition, you can. But if the problem is the definition is a turnoff to too many people, I don't know if it's a branding problem. It's just, maybe your political philosophy doesn't fit in that well with America. And then you also have, I often find that many left-wing, right-wing groups, they have very capacious definitions just for their own purposes. So the thing means either what you think the thing means, what the most committed activists think the thing means, or what we want it to mean in a shape-shifting way. Does defund the police mean don't give them any money? Does it mean to think about different ways to fund interventions with sociologists? And this is a characteristic of many brands, many ideas on, I think, the left and the right.
I remember interviewing James Clyburn, the black congressman from South Carolina, very powerful, right after George Floyd, and he did not like defund the police on that day. Like literally within a week, he was like, "We've got to stop saying that. It's not good for it. That's not what we believe in." let me just finally go to our prediction. I'm stealing this from the McLaughlin group, Mike.
Puke.
All right.
Cliff.
It's 2026. People have asked me this.
Jack Germond. That was my
Jack Germond.
Refer to
what is your give me a prediction for this year, Mike?
Just any prediction?
Yeah, it can be
any
anything.
rubric.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets finished 3-14. I'll say that. I think that Donald Trump's popularity will ebb, and I definitely think, even with redistricting, I very much think that the Democrats take control of the House, which does a couple things, which makes Donald Trump's life much more difficult, but also, I think, if we're open-minded enough, does some rebutting to the greatest fears that we're living in a fascist autocracy.
Do you think they take the Senate too, or just the House?
I do not, but, I can be swayed. What do they say when they don't have a good way to sign off the end of a news report? Time will tell.
Time will tell. Mike Pesca, a journalist who hosts the GIST podcast, thank you for helping us launch the follow-up.
You are fucking welcome.
The follow-up was produced by Harrison Patino. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Substack. It is free for our weekly newsletter. Paid subscribers are going to get a monthly behind-the-scenes Ask Me Anything, ad-free episodes soon, and more. It is at listentothemiddle.substack.com. I'm Jeremy Hobson. Talk to you soon.